so grateful for the opportunity to really be a facilitator today. So we are all experts in the room, and so looking forward to our collaborative efforts today. Go ahead and get our slide deck back up here. So today's agenda is to recap the work we've done with REACH over the last 3 months, really, and then begin some design thinking work around a specific problem of practice that has emerged as kind of a priority based on our conversations at our February convening, as well as the meeting of the Mentor Leader Minds sessions. Jennifer with the instructional coaching group, who was our facilitator in February, is going to be joining us right around 10:30 or so. And she's going to provide some consultative Q&A time kind of in the middle of that design sprint to challenge our thinking and give us the extra push we need to get us to the finish line for that work. And then we will conclude with an intentional closure. So just a little bit of our recap from our last few months. During our February convening, we learned a lot about the growth model, and that packet is hyperlinked on our agenda. So if you need to reference that, if you weren't able to join us or just want to refresh your memory, that packet is available on the agenda. And then we had some problem of practice think time, and some of the topics that emerged from that were how might we incorporate coaching cycles into our programs, looking at how do we build leader capacity to support our new teachers in their buildings, looking at the development of a comprehensive and sequential new teacher curriculum that kind of is a multi-year progression of skills and knowledge that our new teachers need. Specifically thinking about ways we can support our year 2 and year 3 teachers. And we had so much interest in that topic at our convening that we actually had to break out into a couple subgroups to make it a manageable size. And then also a group of us were working on how do we support our alternative pathway educators who didn't come through traditional teacher preparation programs. So after the convening, and actually I think it kind of sparked during the convening, there's been some dialogue around what is the relationship between mentoring and coaching, and how do those skills coexist within our new teacher induction programs? So how do we differentiate, and then how do we develop mentors, and how do we develop coaches, and at what point do we have shared custody of our new teachers, if you will? So I kind of want to just plot that question for you to kind of ponder as I go through the next few slides. This is some information from Diane Sweeney and her work regarding student-centered coaching cycles. But the difference here, you can see her 2 definitions between mentoring and coaching, with mentoring being more of a developmental process to support and guide beginning teachers through that transition into the profession. So there's a very unique outcome regarding beginning teachers. And then whereas coaching is really, it's a professional learning experience in which a professional uses observations and data and non-judgmental reporting and skills to really help another professional get from one level on a particular skill to another. So whereas the mentoring is more general in meeting the needs of a new teacher holistically, coaching allows us to really pinpoint exactly what are those unique skills that that teacher needs to work on, and then do that in a logical learning sequence that really hones their skill set and their craft in a specific area. On the slide deck, these little icons here are hyperlinked to the articles. So if you want to check these out, you can. But 2 pieces from ASCD, one was from James Rowley, and he wrote The Good Mentor. And then Jim Knight wrote an article on what good coaches do. So I'll give you a moment to just kind of look and compare and contrast, and then we'll kind of open it up for just a moment about what do you see that are similar and what do you see that is different. Does anyone care to unmute and maybe talk about something you see that's similar or different? How you might explain the skills of mentoring and coaching specific within our new teacher induction programs?
I will. Can you
Great.
hear me?
Yes.
So there were a couple of things that I was noticing, but one of them that just always stands out is, the good mentor is effective in different interpersonal contexts. And then, our coaches have to be able to create a space where there's choice, like we're going to have different needs and different backgrounds and different experiences. And so I think in those two ways, like being able to meet the people where they are, and first and foremost recognize where they are, and honor that in the work that we're doing, whether it's mentorship or coaching.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitzi.
And this is Jerry. I don't know if you can see me or hear me, but I was thinking also of the good mentor where it says about accepting the beginning teacher without judgment. And then in Jim Knight's work about creating a setting in which teachers feel comfortable saying what they think. I think, our mentors do a good job or need to do a good job of making sure that we are starting where the teacher is and not assuming or expecting certain things. And that goes to not assuming that they know nothing either, because I think a lot of times, just like we say, with our students, everybody comes with prior knowledge. And so to assume our students know nothing and start from a point of they have no context or no background, we don't want to do the same thing to our teachers either. And so they do have context and background. It's just a matter of meeting with them where they are. And so I think that's important in both of those roles.
Absolutely. And I think, when I think about our new teacher program here in Williamsburg, we've kind of have like this month to month, this is what you need to cover for the mentors. And Dan, I know you've done a good job in your district of giving the mentors some choices too within that. I even saw in yours that you had like a coaching column of ways that they could coach. So but yeah, this is from Mentoring Reimagined, and these are some of the common mentor traps, right? And so as mentors, I believe it was Sharon from our convening last year that talked about mentors being the mamas and coaches being like the favorite auntie, right? And so like your auntie doesn't really tell you what to do. Somehow she just has like these fabulous questions that like get you to come to what it is that you're going to do. But your mama is like, no, you need to do this. This is what I said, what have you. So maybe not always like that, but that's definitely my experience. But here are some mentor traps, right? Like the mentor saying, here, I can help you. But sometimes the mentee really needs to find his or her own way. Saying that they know best. And so mentees aren't here to stroke our egos. They're here for this reciprocal learning to take place. Someone saying, I can help you get ahead. And so mentors do open doors that help the mentee get ahead, but we're not trying to keep score as to you owe me this, this, and this because I did this for you. You need me. I showed you last week, remember? So a little bit of patronizing that can happen from sometimes when our mentors are getting frustrated that their mentees aren't moving forward with the things that they think they told them or demonstrated or modeled for them. I'll tell the principal how well you're doing. So all of a sudden, you're their evaluator as the mentor. And so that's not their role to report to the boss how they're progressing because they are a peer. And then that concept of, yeah, well, they did well because of me. So when we think about some of these mentor traps, coaching, teaching our mentors how to be coaches can really kind of help us to avoid some of those traps. We've also talked about the web of support in previous meetings and about how we really want our new teachers to have a variety of people that kind of come around them. But that could be overwhelming if the department chair is working on something with the new teacher and the grade level person, and then there's an instructional coach and then the mentor. There's kind of a need to have kind of a common plan, right, of how we're going to help this teacher without overwhelming them. And so the Virginia Board of Education, these are just excerpts from this beautiful blue book that I'm sure you all put under your pillow at night. But the mentor teacher program here in Virginia encourages us to make sure that we have extended professional development and graduated support for our second and third year teachers, and then also encourages us to have annual individual learning plans that provide individualized support and assistance from mentors with formal professional development offerings. And so if we consider coaching to be a formal professional development option or offering, then the two really can go hand in hand in supporting our new teachers. During our convening in February, Jen talked about the 3 approaches to coaching, starting with kind of more of a coach heavy, doing the heavy lifting with the directive style, moving kind of from right to left, if you will, as far as the continuum is concerned, to the dialogical, where that's more of a collaborative approach to the coaching experience. And then facilitative is more where the teacher takes kind of the lead and does the heavy lifting when it comes to the coaching cycle or experience. And so, I think we had some conversation in February around how might we embed coaching into our new teacher programs? It could be done even with this, right? Of thinking about it through the lens of in years 1 and 2 with our new teachers, they're definitely going to need more of the directive. They don't know what they don't know yet, as well as that dialogical. It should be a release of that autonomy for their learning. And then really by year 2 into year 3, we're using more of that dialogical and facilitative approach. So I'm just kind of framing our thinking around that. What we're going to do today is we've learned from Jen in February around coaching. And last year we learned as well from Sharon around some of the coaching principles. And then we also, during our program, Mentor Minds Leader Program meeting of the Mentor Program Leader Minds, I think that's how it says. Okay. We've shared resources and we've kind of unpacked some problems of practice. But the one that has definitely emerged, I think, is how do we support these year 2 and year 3 teachers? And so kind of extending this conversation between what is mentoring and coaching and how do those two play hand in hand. We'd like to do a quick design sprint. We only have an hour. It's usually several days to do a design sprint. So lucky y'all, you're educators and you're all things to all people all the time. And I know you're great at the sport of multitasking. So we're gonna knock this out in an hour. But if you're not familiar with the basic design thinking process, we start with kind of a big idea question. And so our question today is, how might we better support our year 2 and year 3 teachers? And it doesn't have to necessarily coincide with this concept of mentoring and coaching going hand in hand, but you may want to take it in that direction. It's really up to your team that you're getting ready to work with. But step 1 is to empathize. Unfortunately, we don't have year 2 and year 3 teachers here with us today, but we all work with them intimately in supporting their needs. And so for the empathize phase, we're going to start by reflecting on and relating to the experiences that they've shared with us and really ponder what are the needs and challenges of those teachers and what barriers hinder their support. Now, we've done this previously, so this particular step should be fairly quick. We're just going to kind of recap and get that down on paper to move into step 2, which is to frame a specific issue or a need that we want to address. And I'm going to show you the workbook here in just a second. But within this, you'll see there's a chart. And we're going to talk about if you were designing for a particular stakeholder group that has something to do with the support of year 2 and year 3 teachers, that would be your user. So in this practical example that I have would be our group, my group would say, we have current mentors. And the needs of our current mentors is that they need to be compensated for being able to continue to mentor year 2 and year 3 teachers, but we don't have the financial backing to be able to pay them. So some of the insight behind that is they probably want to support and continue to support, but they also want to feel valued for their contributions and their time for supporting year 2 teachers. But the VDOE doesn't provide reimbursement for mentors of year 2 and year 3 teachers. And additionally, we have so many new teachers coming in each year that when it comes to trained mentors, we kind of need to cycle them back to the newbies, right? We want to use our best mentors with our rookies. And so the year 2 and year 3 teachers sometimes get left to kind of find their own way at that point. And so we finished step 2 by having a how might we question. So the question my group might want to work on with this particular issue would be how might we provide incentives to mentors of year 2 and year 3 teachers. And then we're going to move into, once we pinpoint a very specific question, we're going to move into brainstorming as many ideas as possible. And you can kind of see some of the rules for brainstorming, if you will. You want as many, go for quantity, where there's no crazy idea. We want wild ideas. We want to build upon the ideas of others, stay on the topic, and kind of write headlines when it comes to potential solutions. So the levers for change, this comes out of what was formerly known as School Retool, now co-designing schools out of the Stanford School of Design. These are levers for change. So when we think about, factors that we could potentially control to implement change regarding the problem of practice or the specific question that we've identified, you may want to think about it through the lens of, is there a specific space where that mentorship could happen of year 2 or year 3 teachers? Maybe it's digital, maybe it's virtual, maybe it's physical. Are there specific events that you might plan to support year 2 and year 3 teachers? Is there a specific schedule that you want to implement? Do you have money sources somehow that might support whatever it is that you're designing to answer your question? Is there a process that needs to be designed in order to get your year 2 teachers from point A to point B? Are there specific people in your division who you could take on an ancillary role or a revised role, or maybe it's even leveraging their current role to get you from point A to point B when it comes to year 2 and year 3 teachers? A ritual is more of kind of a standard operating procedure or, something that is part of your normal repertoire that you do as a division. An incentive doesn't necessarily have to be money. It could be other things. So maybe thinking through the lens of incentives, or is there certain communication that needs to happen in order to improve the outcomes that we're searching for? And then you're going to move into prototyping. So you're just going to choose one of the ideas. After step 3, you've put all of your ideas out there as a team, and you're going to highlight one. You're going to pick one and really kind of develop that process or a product that you could use and collaboratively sketch that out. That prototype may be that there's one person in your group that is at a division that's doing something awesome. Dan, the thing you're doing in your division with your Mentor 360, I think that would be like, I hope I got in your group, because that would be like a great thing to start off with, but we would level it up, right? So that's an option that you can expand on something that's already working for one division. Your group may choose to say, well, I do this and I do this and I do this, and somehow merge those 3 ideas together into one more comprehensive idea, or you could just build a new idea from scratch. And then finally, we don't have time for this today, but our goal would be for you to take that prototype back to your divisions and really do some validity checking with your year 2 and year 3 teachers to see that would this really meet your needs, or the mentors or the building administrators, whoever it is that you're designing for with the ultimate goal of supporting year 2 and year 3 teachers. Really think about who else needs to be included in the design and implementation process, and then you could revise and implement either at piloting it with a small group or at scale. So we're going to move into some design time. You're going to see that, let's see here. So this is our agenda. Dean, we might want to put that back. I know we've had some friends come in recently. Right here is our design workbook. This is the one where you can actually make a copy of it if you want it for your own purposes, but we're going to put you in breakout rooms. And so if you're in breakout room 1, you'll actually click on the link for your specific room, okay? So this is a view only one, but the room ones are open for editing. And it's going to walk you through the process. So you'll see the phases here, and then your team roles. You'll need a hydration manager. That's kind of like the leader that's going to keep the conversation and the ideas flowing. The pacer will manage some timing targets. Your idea catcher will be the person that types into this workbook. The Q&A valet, we're so excited that we're going to bring you back whole group. And Jen is going to be joining us. So if you have questions that you need consultative Q&A, right here on page 2 of our agenda, we've got Ask Jen in the parking lot, and you can put your room number and any question or a conversation starter that you'd like her to address at our intermission. Or she may just pop into your room when she joins us. And then you also have the hyped up hurdler, and that is the person that's going to encourage innovative ideas and overcome challenges and keep the affirmations flowing. So you can assign those team roles and then literally just walk through the workbook, answer the questions about empathizing. That should take you about 7 minutes. Defining your down right here into the more specific question. Ideating your ideas. Prototyping by sketching that out, and then a plan for testing your prototype. And if you need help, you can raise your hand for help in your breakout room, and then we will come running to you. What questions do you have about the design sprint? All right, hearing none, I think Dean's going to magically assign you to rooms. And then again, please work in the workbook for your assigned room. That way everyone will have access to everyone's workbooks when it's all said and done. So we're leveling up, friends. So take what you're already doing and level up together. And we look forward to hearing your ideas. Again, we'll do that intermission. Dean's going to send you a note when we've got about 5 minutes before the intermission. We'll come back, talk to Jen, and then you'll see here, you'll be able to go back and do some polishing to the finish line there towards the end after our intermission with Jen. All right, have fun. Happy designing. As I was telling Dean, like a good protocol gets you from 0 to 60, and you guys were at 60. I didn't want to pump the brakes, but we definitely have a great resource available to us, and that is Jennifer, if you remember her from February, those who are with us. And so she is going to be available now. Jen, I'm going to yield to you. I know if you've got questions, make sure you put them in the parking lot so she can address those, or we can just answer them live now too. That's always easy. And thinking about where your group is at, the question that you've pinpointed in your design process. What questions do you have, or what expertise would you like to seek revolving those particular issues?
And I just want to say, while you're considering that, one, if I look distracted, it was because I was trying to make the tremendous version of my head as small as humanly possible on my screen. It was plugged there, and I was like, that is too much Jen Hlavka. We're going to have to make that tinier, especially because she's in here twice, so apologies. First of all, I just want to say it was lovely to see all of your faces again. I think I got to every room because I feel like I've now seen almost everyone. While you're considering, oh, thank you. There we go. There we go. Whew, feel much more comfortable now. While you're considering what would be helpful, and certainly I am here to answer your questions, to help facilitate any conversation, but this is also just an opportunity to take a pause on your design sprint and collaborate with one another. I would offer, while we're considering how we want to make use of this time before you pop back into your rooms, just a couple of themes I noticed amongst the rooms I was in. So food for thought. Many of your rooms were, I think, boiling down the question of what really does need to be different between years 1 and 2 and 3. It's not to say that a year 2 and 3 teacher needs something entirely different. It's that gradual release of responsibility like we have with students, which to me sounded like enhancing the degree of choice and autonomy for year 2 and 3 teachers to make some choice as to where they want to focus, versus in year 1, it might be more of a consultative, a heavier hand approach, with telling them, you know, these are the kinds of things that I'm seeing, I'd love to help you with, I'd really like to help you with planning, etc. And then in every room, I was hearing people talk about the tremendous need for alignment for a variety of reasons. So as you're thinking about the plans that you all were discussing and putting together, I would challenge you in the next phase of your planning to consider, for whatever innovative solution set that you're going to offer, how will you align resources, communication, the marketing of that idea, and the evaluation of that idea, certainly with the metrics that the state's asking you to gather information in those individualized learning plans. How can you align all of that so that you can truly collaborate with administrators and help them see the possibility of the ways in which mentoring someone can feel similar to an evaluation process, can feel similar to any of the required coursework that your conditional hires might have to be doing, so that the cognitive load on our newest colleagues can be decreased so that they can be more available and open to the mentoring that you're helping be provided in their job setting. So I would open up. We've got about a little over 15 minutes together before you'll be going back to your rooms, I believe. So one, certainly for any questions directly for me, and or is there anything that where your group is right now that would be helpful to put out into this space with all of us to bounce some ideas off of, or hear from anyone who might have tried something you're considering. So carte blanche. We can start with questions. Does anyone have any questions at this phase of their sprint? Didn't see any at the bottom. Okay, I'm not completely surprised there weren't any questions at this moment, mostly because you all were doing such a good job working with one another in all of the rooms that I was in. I do think it could be helpful, though. I believe that everyone was at least starting with the focus of what do we do with this year 2 and 3 scaffolding of support, and how do we build stronger webs of support. It might be helpful to just hear from each group in short form, what was the one big idea that you're circling around at this moment? Because that might even inspire some calibration amongst groups. So would anybody be willing to share out one of the big ideas that they're circling around at this moment in their space?
Perhaps your how might we question and where your group is
We
going.
can. Room 4 is happy to share with you, friends. Yes, we are trying to pin down exactly what the difference is, but we sort of zeroed in on, once we know what they are, we will develop those. How might we communicate the support opportunities for year 2 and year 3 teachers so that all stakeholders, and the stakeholders that we listed were year 2, year 3, principal, mentor leads, and mentors. So we want all of them to receive the correct communication to know not only what is available, but also how to engage it.
So that is definitely a communication lever. Got it.
And I know
I could, oh,
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I thought you were going to jump in. Go ahead.
oh, me? Okay. Hi, I'm Lisa Burnham over in Alexandria. I will speak for room 1. So we decided to use, because we are all, we had Frederick County and Stafford County use the surveys for mentor and mentee survey data to inform and kind of align these buckets. Like, what are the buckets of most importance, and then align that so that all departments and the messaging is all around specific buckets at specific times of the year. And so determining these buckets, maybe, and then what the sub buckets would be within, like, classroom management or something. And then creating a timeline of what would be covered for a new teacher or a year two teacher, and then making sure that that is communicated so that all departments, whenever they're working with new staff, they'll be able to, get the same messaging. Like, even though this is math, here is what classroom management strategies you could use for math if they're in a math PD or something like that. So that's kind of what we were thinking. And jump in, Jen and Dan, if that
Well, yeah,
wasn't
I was going to
correct.
say, and then if Dan, please add on, because you stayed in the room longer than I did, but I'm glad, Lisa, that you tagged in after Missy shared, because your two rooms definitely made me think of one another. So Missy, they got to a different question from the same problem set, I think, which would be, how are we making sure that a new teacher isn't getting so many overwhelming messages and resources and supports that they kind of just say, and nod numbly and then forget everything you're saying. And so they were considering, to your question, what if we, using teacher data, categorized in a scope and sequence what all mentors are considering at certain points in the year. And so just for sake of an example, regardless of whether you're 1, 2, or 3, mentors are being poured into development-wise, high leverage, positive classroom and behavior management transition strategies. And that's how you're developing the mentors. You're informing administrators. This is something we're really focusing on. This is some of the language, the tools, and the resources that we're using with these new teachers. And then you're offering certainly enhanced supports in year 1, but then maybe a scaffolded approach or a menu choice in year 2 and 3. And so everybody's kind of focusing on the same things, which solves the communication problem, if you will. And that's not to say that people are beholden and can only receive mentoring in that area, but that at least there's some alignment so that there's common language at the same time of year. And it's been based on teacher feedback from having just gone through an entire calendar school year. I wish I had known this in the fall. That would have really set me up well for this in the winter versus this in the spring. But Dan, would you offer anything else? Because I think those two ideas connect really nicely, actually.
Yeah, I guess the only piece I would add, Jen, is we were talking about the growth coaching model in that context. And okay, so if a new teacher is not certain, a typical response is, I'm not sure what I want to work on, or is something along those lines, then with those buckets, you could almost, and Jen in not Jen, in our group, we were talking about, okay, maybe we can have a choice board or a menu of, here are some things we might be able to work on that are aligned with this particular bucket. So then we have that alignment along those lines. So, yeah.
And the last thing I would offer there really quickly before any of the other rooms want to tag in on connecting ideas or supplemental enhancing ideas in another area would just be that also gets you to, I know another concern we all have in this space is evaluating impact. And so if you're able to kind of start taking data in a similar fashion, then you're also able to calibrate across mentors or across program areas and calibrate with even a school setting, different data sets. How do we know that what we're focusing on actually matters? Because your pool of data is looking in the same direction instead of, and it's an imperfect analogy, but it's just true, a shotgun, a constellation of data points that you're trying to make meaning of, and you're not even sure if in your integrity, am I just looking for what I want to see in the data? But if you're looking at a pool of data that's similar, you can even make it anonymous and talk across mentees to look for trends, and then have these common conversations that bolster mentors' confidence and capacity because they're having similar conversations and not feeling like they're siloed because they happen to be the one who works with, the related arts teacher or what have you. We're all having this common conversation. So that's food for thought. What group would like to pop in next? Either a connecting idea or maybe something separate that would enhance all of our thinking.
I think we were group 2, and I don't know if it's, I think it kind of builds off of all of those things that you were talking about, that our question was, how might we provide intentional opportunities for reflection, connection, and celebration for our year 2 and year 3 teachers? Because a lot of our conversation was around the idea of they're needing to reflect on where they are, so that then, you were talking about the buckets and that sort of thing. How do they even know which bucket they would need, or that they have to focus on? But also giving them an opportunity to celebrate the things that they have mastered or that they are doing well, and using that to build off of. So we were kind of trying to look at how do we provide maybe structures or routines within protocols within meetings or gatherings, so that we can intentionally pull those things forward for the year 2 and year 3 teachers, because we all know everybody's busy and time is our enemy all the time. So how do we make our time count?
I would just add, I was also in room 2, and the choice board is something that Frederick County right now is in the process of building for year 2 and year 3. And I just appreciate the conversation and also this follow-up, because it has allowed me to kind of think about, sometimes I feel like my mind is so much in the weeds that I don't always see the big picture of things, and having this collaborative nature has made me think about the big picture, and not just being intentional about the structure, but also the process. So when we hear the 2 conversations and we're thinking about, okay, how are we providing autonomy and choice, but also how are we creating a structure to facilitate that autonomy and choice? Because some teachers, some second and third year teachers, they may not know what they don't know. So back to, I believe, Dan's point, when we're facilitating, when the mentor, buddy mentor, whatever your second and third year teachers have, to say, you will have to facilitate a conversation with the mentee, with this choice board, to say, where do you want to go? And if they don't know, then this is what that conversation should look like. Because I don't know that we always, from a coaching standpoint or even from a directive standpoint, that we're that intentional about how the process should be. We just assume that, okay, here are these tools, and we let it go out, and then it's inconsistent across buildings. So if we're more intentional about the process, not just the product, I think that will just help build the consistency across buildings.
I kind of want to bridge off of another group. I can't remember what room, because I have an all access pass to your rooms. But another room was talking about a cohort model and launching that. And so now I'm even bridging, how might you create a cohort model within a bucket, right? So, having the teachers pinpoint what bucket they want to really, really focus on, right, in year 2. And then the cohort model is around, you've got 3 different cohorts, 1 for each bucket. I think they were designing more of like levels. And everybody kind of, depending on that level, you kind of get a nice little buffet of everything. But you could even go the other direction and say, what bucket do you want to live in this year? And here we're going to create a cohort model around that.
That was, what room were we? 5, I think. Emily, Jenna, Katie. And that was really kind of the pilot, if you will, what we're exploring next year. That was how we kind of came into the conversation. And if you think about that idea that you mentioned earlier of the gradual release and how tight we are with year 1, and then where do we go with year 2 and year 3? And this cohort model really is a little bit more self-directed around set topics, if you will. But where we centered much of our conversation was like, how do we really know maybe what those topics need to be, or what folks might need to be encouraged into different topics or experiences, and where the opportunity was to gather some of that data. And we had this like, oh gosh, it would have been nice if the Reach survey actually included a question about what are you celebrating this year, and what are you thinking about as a focus of your professional learning next year. Obviously, as a division, we can do those things, but really kind of tightening up how do we know the more specific needs? Because we know that, you know, K-12 is the new educator prep. So the needs are fairly significant across pedagogy as well as their other practices. So that was kind of where we had focused. Now I invite Emily, Jenna, Katie to jump in if you want to offer anything else around our conversation.
I think too, the one thing I was going to offer is to me, that all connects also to providing year 2 and 3. So one room was talking about year 2 and 3 really needing more opportunity to build their pedagogical, metacognitive, reflective practice muscle, right? And so in a cohort model, and it could be mixed grouping, right? Homogeneous by years of experience versus heterogeneous or not. And just thinking about the ways in which celebrating growth in the presence of year 1 teachers offers year 1 teachers hope and a vision of like, oh, I could get there by next year. Like talking about the same topical area while providing year 2 and 3 teachers with the opportunity to recognize how far they've come, which to me is an antidote to some of the burnout that we're seeing, which is I need to see that I've experienced growth over time with intentional effort and planning. I need to see that in order to feel like, okay, I was there last year and look where I am now. And it can be a virtuous cycle between the newer colleagues to the field and the more experienced, if you will. We also talked about the ways in which we could leverage in one of the rooms observation of other teachers that are adept at that skill. The last thing I would say to Annie's point when it comes to evaluation, I put together I know that evaluation is high of mind right now for you as a program lead. And so I just put together my 3 top resources that I'm leaning on right now as I think about strategic planning for the coming year, school year 24-25 with my own program. And then just my contact information. I'd love to stay in touch with what's going to happen next with your programs, or if you have any questions. And I would say that the 8 Smooth Steps article is older from Joelle and Killian, but it is something I lean on repeatedly when it comes to being thoughtful about strategic planning. So I only have a very few short minutes left with you all. I just wanted to say thank you all for your time, and then certainly not to take any more airtime before you get into your groups. If there's anything else that you all wanted to talk about before you break apart with everyone. It's so good to see you guys.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think the intermission has been helpful, right? Like we're kind of tying together these little pixels are all coming together from the different rooms. And I think that's really special. So hopefully we've got some emerging ideas. And thanks for being with us today.
Yeah. And you're not, I don't know if I'm like an anonymous lemur or what I am right now, but I'm probably going to be staying in the documents because I'm really, really pumped about what y'all are doing. So I'm going to be getting ideas for my own district. So on behalf of, separate from ICG, Howard County Public Schools in Maryland, thank you for all the inspiration you've offered me in our time together. Hope to hear from you soon. My contact information is in that document, and best of luck. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Happy end of school year.
Bye, y'all.
Friends, you're going to head back into your breakout rooms now. You've got some emerging thoughts, hopefully, that you want to tie together. And so wherever you're at in the process, if you want to head on back, we're going to reconvene at 11:45, whole group. So you've got 15 minutes to kind of solidify your prototype and how you might test that within your districts. We're not going to do a whole group share out at the end unless someone's super proud of the where you're at and you can't wait to tell someone about it. So we will certainly honor the mic for you if that's your case. But as Jen shared, you do have access to everyone's thinking via the hyperlinks. So Dean, can you beam us back to our natural habitats?
Live long and prosper.
Thank you. All right. Well, I've been sneaking around and looking at your workbooks. And I know, there's looks like a few, maybe 2 of the 5 actually got to that testing phase. Others were still working in the prototype area. But as learners, we know it's not really about the product as much as it is the process, right? And so hopefully the process of engagement and collaboration and kind of pulling together these things that are working across the divisions has begun to kind of get your brain moving in a direction with where you can take it to the next level and use some of the practical ideas within the programs that you're leading and facilitating. As part of the step 5, we did ask you to begin to think about what are your next steps. Who might you need to talk to back in your divisions? What questions do you need to ask them? And then how does that become an action step towards advancing your work? And so at the bottom kind of our agenda, it says my next steps. So for our intentional closure, we've been sprinting for the last hour. I figured we'd do a walking recovery. So these are your next steps here. What are your next steps for advancing your team's design or another team's design that perhaps you heard at the intermission or you've been sneaking around like I have into the other workbooks? So we'll give you a second to kind of think about that. And if you want to put that in the chat, we would love to be your accountability partners. Sometimes we don't have time to speak it into existence, but you can put it in writing. How about that? All right, as you finish up your next steps and your commitment to yourself and the people that you serve, I am going to turn it back over to Deb, and please feel free. The slide deck and the design sprint workbooks are certainly available to you. I'm a sharer. Make them your own. The design sprint workbooks are kind of a combination of different resources, but I did use a lot from the Co-Designing Schools website if that's something that you're interested in. But please make those your own for whatever purpose you have. And I will turn it back over to Deb.
Thanks, Alaina. And thank you to everyone. I'm reading through your next steps, and as always, I continue to be impressed by your commitment and your enthusiasm and your energy in continuing to design, develop, and implement excellent new teacher mentoring programs. I do want to say many thanks to Dean again for helping make sure that we all landed in the right place. And Alaina, again, for putting together our protocol and our content and our little design books and things like that for us to work in. That's always helpful for us to be able to organize our thoughts. A couple of quick reminders before we let you all go for today is The evaluation email went out Monday. The window is open. And it closes May 13th. If you did not get that or you have any questions, please be sure to reach out to either Meg or I. We'll be sure to help you out there. And then a second reminder is the next meeting of the Mentor Program Leader Minds is scheduled for April 30th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Missy, have we decided which topic is next?
Nope. But it will be one of the topics that came from our February convening. So we've done year 2, year 3, we've done leadership. So I imagine coaching is probably coming up. So
awesome. Great. So we hope that you'll be able to join us there as we continue to brainstorm. And Missy's done a great job at pulling your resources and ideas and brainstorming thoughts together into a single document. And our goal is to continue to take these next steps, taking those initial brainstorming activities and being able to design them and think about how we actualize them in our programs, and find the things that work for us, because we know we're all in the same storm, but we're all in our own boats and in our own cultures and things like that, making sure that everything works for us. So thank you again for your time today and all of the brain power. Know that Meg and I are here if you need anything as you're going forward. We're happy to help. And we hope that the next couple months go smoothly for everyone as you head through SOL season and end of the year activities.